Hi, this video is an overview of the AdStream application that you will use to program your new electronic display. The AdStream application is very intuitive and easy to use. When you first remote into your display, you'll see a Windows desktop on your PC that's actually being broadcast from your display. That's an intuitive and familiar way for you to interact with the AdStream application. So let's get started. First, once you remote in, you'll notice an AdStream icon on your desktop. You'll double-click the AdStream icon to get started. The first thing it'll ask you is a dialog if you want to start a new empty movie, or if you want to work on an existing movie that you may have previously recorded at another time and want to change the content of that ad, maybe for a holiday that came up the next year on a different date, or possibly a time or even a price for your advertisement. So for now, being for demonstration purposes, we're just going to start a new empty movie. I'd like to demonstrate the black box that you see on your screen right now. What this box does is it actually represents the LED sign that you'll be programming it. From corner to corner, edge to edge, it's a perfect representation of what your display is outside broadcasting to the public. Whenever we put content into this box, we want to make it fit within the borders of the screen. If it's outside the borders, it will look cut off on the screen, so we want to keep everything inside. So let's get started with our first advertisement. And what I did was I just went on to Google and I downloaded some small files that will basically be the premise of our ad and will be the foundation of what we're going to lay out in our slides. It's very simple to do. I just Googled images and we're going to do an ad for McDonald's. Very simple, but very, very professional at the same time. The first thing we want to do, as most of you will, is insert an image or a photograph. So we'll go to the top of our toolbar and we will say Insert, Image, and then it's going to just basically open up a browser of the hard drive that's inside the controller of the sign. And here are the pictures that I downloaded from Google Images. I'm going to start off with using a McDonald's logo. It's a PNG file, as well as other files can be used: JPEG, PNG, bitmap, GIF files, and so forth and so on. Basically, any picture file will work, whether you snapped it on your cell phone or took it with a professional camera. As long as you can have it digitized, you can install it on the screen. We'll start off with the McDonald's logo first. I'm going to open the file. And if you notice, the logo is there, but it's much too big for our screen. So we need to bring this down to the constraints of our border. On the left-hand bottom corner of the screen, you'll notice 4 magnifying glasses. The one on the bottom right is a zoom out. Just click that until you can see the full image, and you'll notice that there's small little squares around all of the logo to where we can actually grab one and we can reduce the size simply by dragging it. So what I'm going to do is try and reduce the size of this logo about to the same size as my screen. Once I feel that I'm close, I'll just kind of hover in the middle of it, click with my left mouse button, hold it, and drag it down to the screen. Once I get to this point, I'm going to come back to my magnifying glass and just zoom in a little bit so I'm a little more comfortable while I'm working. I'm going to grab another corner and I'm just going to try and fit this image as best as I possibly can. Try and center it and keep everything proportional. There. So we're done. I could make this a little wider and make the McDonald's logo stretch to the right-hand side of the screen. I think that looks a little better. So once we're there, what we want to do now is give it an effect. We want to have an effect when it comes in, and we want to have an effect when it goes out so we can transition into another slide. To do this, it's simple. If you look at the top of the screen now, we have what's called a timeline. Inside this timeline, as soon as we imported this image, it created a timeline for the image. The name of the image was McDonald's logo. The logo's a little long, so we can't read the whole thing, but we generally know what it is. And it's the only image we've put in so far. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my first frame. Now I do want to explain something before I move on. This video actually runs at 30 frames per second, which is pretty standard for most video applications today to make it flicker free while it's playing on your screen or on your TV or anything else. At 30 frames per second, that means if we look at our timeline, that every 30 frames, being 1 through 30, is going to equal 1 second. So as this timeline progresses on, this will be 1 second, 60 frames will be 2 seconds, 90 frames will be 3 seconds, and so on. So to start my transition in, I'm just going to right-click on frame 1, and this is going to open a dialog. Now what I could do with this dialog is I can manipulate the image that we have on the screen. I could take it and I could fade it in, which would be very simple. I can make it appear into position and have several things that I could choose from that are a little more three-dimensional and maybe a little crazy and more interesting. I could also slide the image in from left, from right, in from top, and in from bottom. You could also use these for outros. But for now, let's just try one of the appear into position. For starters, I think I'll just choose a fade with a white in. If you notice, as soon as I chose the effect, it automatically put it in my timeline for me. I can make this longer if I want to make the effect last 1 second, but we'll leave it at standard where it was defaulted when it came in for now. The next step is I want to see what my effect is going to look like. Very simply, I just click at the top of the timeline in the frames area, and I can hold my mouse button and basically just drag it across the effect and see what it's going to look like. So it's basically just a wiping in type fade, which is fine for this application. Now I have to decide how long that I'm going to keep this image on the screen before I transition into the next image. So I think I'll probably keep this image up for maybe 3 seconds. So what I'll do is I'll count 30 frames, that's 1 second, and if you look at all the long lines in between, it will represent 1 second. So that's 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. At the 3 second mark, I'll right click in the frame on the same timeline for this image, and let's just do a simple fade out. Okay, now if I wipe across the top, I'll see my image fade in with a white, and I'll see it fade out. So my next step, I want to insert my next image. My next image is basically going to be a background. So I'll click Insert, Image. There's my background JPEG that I saved on Google. I'll highlight it, click Open, and there's my background. Again, it's much too big, but in this case, we don't have to zoom out at all because we could actually see the small bars all around the photo that we could drag and click and bring it down to the size we need it. So again, I'll try and get it as close to my size of my background. Grab the picture and bring it in. I usually bring these in at the top right left-hand corner because from there I could just grab the bottom right-hand corner and just make it fit fairly easy. I want to try and cover all of the black without going over the borders because anything that leaves the border will be cut off on the screen. But I think this will look just fine. I do see a little black right there, so we'll just kind of stretch it a little over. We could go back just to make sure. And that should be good enough right there. So now, since we had our first logo come in and go out, we need to choose another effect to bring in this background. Being that it's just a background, it really doesn't need anything too interesting. So we're just going to do a simple fade in on it as well. So here is where our McDonald's logo faded out. As soon as it fades out, I want this background to fade in. So I'm just going to right click, fade, fade in. Now when I go across my timeline, I'll see my logo come in. And this is our progress so far. I'll see it go out. And then our background fades in. So from there, we want to leave our background there and we want to insert some images, possibly of food or whatever product you might be selling at the time, whether it be a special or just a long-running menu item or whatever it is that's tailored to your business or institution. So I did download a couple of other images that I'm going to use for this ad. I'm going to go to Insert, Image, just like we did before, and I'm going to choose this Big Mac icon. I'm going to open the file. There's a picture of the image that I want to place. I only have a couple of bars here and I want to get to the corner, so I may have to zoom out just a little bit. And I didn't have to zoom out much, just one click did the trick. And I'm going to bring this down to about the size I want it to be, and what I'm going to do is place this on the left side of my background. Now that'll look really good at this size, but I also do want to put some text in here as well, and I do want to leave a little room for text, so I may shrink this down just a little bit more. There's no perfect way to do this, but whatever looks good to you will usually suffice. Just try and keep everything proportional and symmetrical, and you shouldn't have any problems at all. So I think that looks pretty good. So of course, I'm going to need to give this an effect as well, or else if it doesn't have an effect, it's just going to be there from the beginning. So going in my timeline, you notice when I inserted this image, it also gave me a timeline for the Big Mac. So here's where my last two slides faded out and where the background faded in. And I want to choose for this image to fade in right around the middle of when the background actually faded in. Actually, let's do it at the end. I think it'll look a little bit better. We can always change this later. So in this case, I think what would look pretty neat is let's make the hamburger slide in from the right and stay to the left. So we'll just go to slide, very simple, in from right, and we're basically done. Now if we scroll across our timeline, we'll notice our logo that's there. It fades out, background fades in, and the hamburger actually slides into place. I think I want the hamburger to slide in just a little bit sooner, so all I have to do is just take the effect, click on it, hold the mouse button, and just drag it inside this fade in just a little bit. So now when I look at the ad and I go across it, my logo fades out, and I have a little better timing of how the hamburger comes in and the ad looks a little more professional. So now what I want to do is put some text in the ad as well. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so I'm a little more comfortable while I'm working. I'm going to go right here to the top of my toolbar and I'm going to say insert text. There's two places you could do this. One is text, this one is insert text. And you'll notice the little dialog pop up so it helps you along the way. I'll click insert text and it puts a text box in there for us. Very simply, there's the word. There's a dialog box on the right where I could change what it says in there. I could select the color of the text by simply clicking on the color palette. I could do custom colors as well and choose any color for this that I like. In this case, I think white looks good against this background, so let's stick with that. I could also choose my fonts, which there's about 150 available. However, in this case, McDonald's does use the Arial Black font, so we're going to stick with the Arial Black that was chosen by default. Of course, just like the image, I can grab this and I can size it to any size I want, as big as I like, as small as I like, as many lines as I like. There's no restrictions to this software and it's much more intuitive than most of the LED software I've used in the past. I can also grab this and move it anywhere on the image that I like. And I think what we're going to do here, just for demonstration purposes, is make a 2 for $5 ad for two different menu items. So here's my text. I'm going to come over to the right dialog and let's just put a 2 and then space 4. And if you notice here at the top, it made a timeline. As soon as I inputted that text, I have a 2-4 timeline. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's go ahead and add our second line of text. Now here, just very simply, I'm just going to change the text to a $sign and $5. And in Advertising 101, we usually make the price big because that's what we're trying to set our attention at for the people that are passing and reading the advertisement. Let's move this around, get it a little more proportional, get the $5 a little closer, grab my corner, make it a little bit bigger. So in essence, we pretty much have our full ad, but I did mention before we wanted to add another menu item. So I'm going to come up here in my timeline, and first of all, I want to go ahead and give my text an effect in and an effect out. So let's see where we're at so far. Logo, background, and we want our text to pop up right around the time that hamburger is moving across the center of the screen. It's just timing. There's no perfect way to do this, but as you progress and you get better at the software, you seem to have an easier time on setting what's right as far as the timetables go. So let's take our 2-4, and we stopped right around there, so that kind of gives us an idea of where we want to insert our next effect. So where that red line is, I'm going to go ahead and click on the timeline for the 2-4 text. I'll do something simple. Of course, I could do something very interesting if I want to, but for now, for demonstration purposes, let's just keep things simple. I'm going to do a simple fade in on the 2-4, and I'm going to do the same thing for the $5. So right where that faded in the timeline, on the same frame, $5 timeline, I'm going to do a fade in. Now, there's our logo, here comes our images, and there's our text fading in. But I think I'd like the $5 to fade in just a little bit later than the 2-4. So I'll just find that timeline, which is my top timeline. I'll grab the effect, just move it out a little bit, and that'll give me a few frames in between so that the $5 will come in a little bit later. See that? So now we basically want to figure out how long we want this part of the ad to stick. I say we should probably stick maybe 1.5 to 2 seconds. Let's stick for 2 seconds and let's bring in our other menu item. So I'm just going to say Insert, Image, choose the chicken sandwich, click Open. There's our image, and of course it's too large again, so we're just going to zoom out, grab the corner, bring it down to size, make it about the same size as the image you have on there now. Kind of makes it easy because you can lay it right on top of the image that's there now, and that'll help you size it better. Just little tricks to make things easier. I definitely want to keep it in the constraints. So we have two things. We know we need to make the Big Mac disappear, and we want it to fade into the chicken sandwich. So I'll just look for my Big Mac timeline. Here's where it slides into right. We were going to keep the whole ad static for a couple of seconds without changing. So there's our 2 seconds of dead space. Nothing else is going to happen in between here until we give it another effect. So on my Big Mac timeline, I would like it to fade out here. And here is the timeline for our chicken sandwich that we pasted in just a moment ago. Every time we paste a new image, it'll create a new timeline for you. There's nothing that you have to do. It's completely automatic. So as the Big Mac is fading out, let's say in the middle of that fade out, again, there's no rules to this. Anywhere you put it is fine. You can always move them back and forth at any time. If you don't like the timing, you can always change it just by dragging. We're going to do a fade in on our chicken sandwich. Now the effect we just made with the simple fade in and fade out actually does quite a bit. So let's see what it looks like. Let's just kind of scroll from this part of the video. We'll see our Big Mac slides in, 2 for 5. We'll have 2 seconds of dead space. And then our chicken sandwich will automatically morph from a Big Mac to a chicken sandwich. That simple, nothing to it. So now, all we have to do is just figure out, we might want this to stick for another 1.5 seconds. Here's about a half a second. Here's a full second. And anywhere is fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just don't want to make it too long or too short. You want to give people enough time to read the ad. Okay. So we know at the end of our ad, we just basically want everything to disappear. So anything that doesn't have an effect coming out, we need to just go ahead and close it out at the end. It's very simple. We know the chicken sandwich needs to disappear, so we'll do a fade out on the chicken sandwich. And you can test yourself as you go just by scrolling across. Okay, the chicken sandwich disappeared. Our background needs to disappear, so we'll just find that in the timeline. The second to the last one, it'll put a little marker there if you click on it, kind of make it easier for you to find. We'll make this one fade out at the same time. And the only thing we have left was our 2 for $5, which is easy enough to find. There's the 2 for. There's our marker to help us. I'll click right here and do another fade out. And the $5 as well. So I'll click on the 5, so I have a marker, make it simple. Right click on the frame and fade out. So now, as I scroll across, let's go from here. That's where our logo disappeared. Hamburger comes in, text comes in, gives us our message, changes to the next menu item, and then at the end of the ad, everything completely fades out. And there you have it. We've completely built a full ad for McDonald's. We could also click these analog tick buttons up here, which are just basic, stop, play, fast forward. And we'll click the play button. And what that'll do is let us preview our ad in real time. And of course, it's just going to keep looping the ad because this is the end of it and there's no other content, so it'll keep playing until you hit stop. And that's it. There's really nothing else to it. We created a professional ad in maybe 10 minutes. We have something that we could put on our screen that looks good. We didn't have to hire a graphics designer. The learning curve of this software, most people that we train usually pick up the basics of what I'm showing you in the first 30 minutes. After that, maybe a day or two of them playing with the effects and just messing around with pictures and trying things and just seeing what looks good. If you don't like it, you could always delete it, start all over. It's very simple, but in a couple of days, people usually become pretty fluent at it, and our questions after the fact are really not that many. It is pretty self-explanatory once you get the basic fundamentals of the software. So I want to follow the last step to be able to put it on the sign. We actually built our video file. So really the only thing we need to do from here is say File, Save As, and we want to give it a file name. So we'll just call this MCD for McDonald's because we know that's our McDonald's ad. Of course, we can call this, 2 for $5. So we can call it up for future reference, and we could also bring it up at another time and make any kind of modifications or edit anything as far as the text of the images later, since we have a basic foundation, so we don't have to do double work the next time. I'll go ahead and save this. We can save it to the desktop. That's fine. And we're done. The next step is just to minimize the AdStream application and basically just drag and drop over to the sign portion of the software, which is going to upload it to the display. It's very simple to do and really requires no training whatsoever. So with that, you basically see the power of the software, what you're able to do. There's a lot more that you could do. As far as the effects go, of clicking on the appear into position, disappear into position. There's several effects. There's about 90 in total, and we're adding more all the time. There's also a whole nother category of effects that are looping continuously, and you could play around those too. You can also use them for input and output as well, whether they're coming in and going out, or if you have some dead time to make a flag wave, you can use the flag waving, and it'll make your image of an American flag or whatever you want to put up there, give it a waving effect, even if it's a static image. Lots of things you can do, and this is basically here at your disposal to try. If you don't like anything, let's say you didn't like this effect for whatever reason, you could just right click, click delete effect, and then you could just right click again and then insert another effect by going to appear into position or doing something simple like the fade in or out or the slide maneuver that we've done with the Big Mac on the first portion of the ad. And that's basically it. That's your overview of AdStream. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was intuitive for you.